welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the south side of Pittsburgh. It's a Tomlin Tuesday as the Steelers get ready for a trip to Dublin, Ireland. What a great week this will be out there for them as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. Both of these teams, 2 wins, 1 loss. The Steelers coming off a big win on the road where they forced 5 turnovers in an effort to win that game, and they did, 21-14. Minnesota, on the other hand, they blew out Cincinnati 48-10. They also had 2 defensive touchdowns in that game. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. Mike Tomlin is ready to address what happened last week and also look ahead to the Vikings. So let's go to head coach Tomlin right now.
Good afternoon, man. Really excited for this week's work. Certainly getting an opportunity to play internationally is a big honor. It's something that I've been a part of a couple of times, and it doesn't get old, man, to represent our game of American football on the international stage, man, is a really cool thing. And so excited about being a component of that. But as we sit here today, it's more about the preparation that tees up performance, and that's really what has our attention. Before I get into some of those things, I'll give you a quick review of last week's performance. As we talked after the game, it's good to win in a hostile environment. Had some really positive things. I thought we did a nice job of working our turnover culture. And pursuing and getting the football. Certainly needed all of those turnovers. Can't say enough about the ones that kind of bookend halftime. That red zone takeaway by Brandon Echols there at the end of the first half, and then the caused fumble and fumble recovery there early in the third quarter. When you can get those type of point swings in that space, you got a chance to win football games, certainly. But we're not always going to be able to take the ball away from people, and so I thought we could have been better in our possession down play defensively, particularly in the short yardage component of possession down play. I thought quarterback mobility was a component of their success in that space. I thought we did a really good job of minimizing the quarterback mobility and drop back passing circumstances via scramble and things of that nature. But I thought the quarterback mobility of Drake May was significant in some 3rd and shorts and some 4th and shorts, which kept us on the field an extended period of time. New England was very aggressive in terms of their 4th down play, and we weren't successful enough. We had an opportunity to really seize control of the game had we won some more of those, particularly the one that was on the long field. But they kept some drives alive. They possessed the ball. They minimized our opportunity to possess the ball in doing so, and I think that made sledding tough for us at different times of the game, particularly in the second half offensively. We stalled ourselves out some. We threw an interception, I think, on the 3rd play of the second half. We went 3 and out after that on the next possession. I think we got a holding call on possession and 10, and when 1st and 10 goes to 1st and 20, there's a high likelihood for 3 and out football. And so, you know, some of that popcorn, lack of execution or lack of detail in execution, along with their willingness to go for it on possession down moments, really altered the time of possession. And I think it kind of affected us at times in terms of the way we'd like to play. I thought we initially were running the ball very well at the early stages of the game, for example. I thought we had a tough time regaining our rhythm because of some of the sequences and things that I mentioned just a second ago. But you live and you learn, man. We made the necessary plays to win, certainly. I love the way we're operating in the red area offensively. We got to be one of the top teams in the league in terms of red zone efficiency. You need that. You need to kick extra points as opposed to field goals, and like the overall trajectory of that, we're spreading the ball around to a lot of people, starting to really establish some personality things. But I think a lot of people are, as you move from game 3 to game 4, you're starting to see some things and getting a feel for how to best divide the labor up in different circumstances. And so there's some general collective growth in all 3 phases. I thought we took a step forward in our kicking game. Our kickoff team in particular, I thought, was better than it has been. We were consistently making stops inside the 30 and, you know, making them play on a longer field and winning the battle of real estate in that space. And we get some play from some young people. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Jack Sawyer, a guy that hadn't played a lot of special teams prior to the National Football League. He was a defensive end, if you will, at Ohio State, and I think he had 3 tackles in special teams last week. And so we're getting some collective growth. We're getting some individual growth, such as life this time of year. it's good to do so and win at the same time. And so certainly we hope to continue to do that this week. From a health perspective, just giving you an update on some guys. You can characterize Alex Highsmith is out this week with his ankle. Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter certainly have a chance. I just saw Deshaun working out just a few minutes ago. We'll work those guys this week and let the amount of their participation and the quality of their participation be our guide in terms of their participation in game, but also the amount of participation. We were in a similar situation last week with Derek Harmon, for example. He was deemed healthy enough to play. We got him in uniform, but we were certainly cognizant of the number of snaps that he played. Health and football readiness and conditioning at times can be different things, and so we'll watch those guys close and make appropriate decisions at the latter part of the week. We had some bumps and bruises associated with play that might limit a few people at the early portions of the week, but certainly probably doesn't make their availability a question mark. For example, Slay was in and out of the game a few times with a leg contusion. It may slow him at the early portions of the week, but certainly expect him to be available for us as we push forward toward game time. Now on to the Vikings. Start first with the Viking offense. I think they've already made the announcement that Carson Wentz is their starting quarterback this week, and that certainly has our attention. He's a Grizzly veteran. Oftentimes, particularly when you have a young, inexperienced quarterback, there's some big-time benefits of playing with a vet backup. The veteran guy oftentimes does the intangible components of the job very well. They communicate and articulate the schematics and the plan to others. They uplift guys and get people lined up. They oftentimes are able to carry more schematic responsibility and so forth at the line of scrimmage. And so I don't necessarily view it as a negative thing for the Minnesota Vikings, at least in the short term, that Carson is playing for them. We were in a similar situation a year ago. We were playing in Indianapolis, man, and I commented to the guys that, keep Richardson upright. Don't put Flacco in the game. And, Flacco ended up in the game. And I think that's oftentimes some of the things that you can run into when you run into a veteran guy, at least from a short-term perspective. And so we got a lot of respect for Carson and his journey, his experience, and what he's capable of providing his team this week. We're preparing with that understanding and that edge. He certainly has a full repertoire of targets available to him. The return of Jordan Addison, I think, is significant. Watched him a lot when he was in Pittsburgh. He is a talented receiver. He's capable of taking the top off the coverage. He has very good body control and hand-eye coordination and fine motor skills. He's good after the catch. Certainly Jefferson is a man to be reckoned with. Good 50-50 ball guy, tough, good after the catch as well. TJ at tight end is a challenge. And so, Carson has a nice arsenal of people to throw the ball to. Jones, their running back, is down, but they have Mason. Mason's a guy that distinguished himself in the league last year in San Fran, playing in place of McCaffrey. He's a downhill runner. His power always falls in the right direction. He had a really good game last week, and so, there's a lot of things that have our attention. The return of their left tackle is a major component, not only of their run game, but also protecting Carson's blind side. And so we got a lot to be concerned about and prepare for on that side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, certainly highly familiar with Coach Flores and his schematic approach to football, but it certainly doesn't make the preparation process or the playing against it any less difficult. He's very multiple in his schemes and thoughtful. He attacks protections from a passing game perspective and does so very well. He plays in an aggressive up posture, structured defensively. It doesn't always mean that he blitzes a lot. Sometimes he can fall out of that into a variety of bogus zones. More than anything, man, he carries a big menu. He challenges you individually and collectively from a football intellect perspective. I think the veteran-laden secondary really allows a lot of those things to happen. I think the return of Harrison Smith is significant on the back end, tying all of those things together. They got a nice veteran group at corner. Rogers had a big game last week, and certainly Murphy's been around. And so I think when you got veterans like that, it allows you to carry a big menu and do some of the things that they do pre-snap from a look perspective that really is challenging to protection schemes. Up front, Javon Hargraves, the acquisition of Javon is significant in terms of their rush. Javon has been a significant player at every stop. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. Got to talk about their edge people. That edge tandem is really impressive. Make a lot of splash plays, very versatile. They rush versus tackles. They drop in a myriad of schemes that Coach Flores deploys. And so we got a lot to get prepared for there. But more than anything, it's about us continuing to grow. I'm sure the same thing could be said from their perspective. I think there are a lot of teams at this juncture of the journey that's really focused on the individual collective improvement and the consistency of play. And so those are things that have our attention as we lean in on our work week. The physical work on this side of the trip is important for us. We're doing some things to acclimate ourselves to the trip. We're working early this week to start the body clock transition process. We certainly have some best practices in terms of acclimating ourselves once we begin the journey at the latter part of the week, but nothing unique there. A lot of organizations have been traveling internationally now for a number of years, and so some of those procedural things that put you in position to best perform are less mystical and really more best practices, the hydration factor, the sleep factor, and all of those things. We had a good admin meeting yesterday regarding some of that stuff so that we can get singularly focused on the football work, the prep work that's going to be required to position ourselves to play winning football. So I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, what did you learn? I mean, you've been overseas one time. What about the travel and handling it? Have you learned anything that you could take into this?
It's been a long time for me individually, and that's kind of what I was referring to. There's been a lot of organizations since then that travel, and I just think procedurally is less mystical. I think procedures are more global. There's more shared information about how to best pull off these trips. We have that information. The Vikings have that information. I think it's, less of a discussion topic in today's game as it was maybe in 2014 or whatever year that was that we went to London.
Mike, how do some of the injury recoveries work with the international travel and playing on a different field?
I don't expect it to be significant in any of those discussions.
What about having your secondary intact against such an explosive passing group of receivers, at least? Are there things you've been holding back because of these injuries?
Certainly, but it's not just the injuries. If you're coaching and you're seeing around corners, certainly one injury doesn't get you off your game, and two better not. But it's the injuries coupled with the fact that the players themselves are new in general. As I mentioned last week, man, all four of the secondary guys in that second ball game for us were new to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so we got some new people, we got some attrition, and certainly you're doing what's appropriate when you take the game schematically to those that are playing. But I imagine the more we play, the more stadiums we step into, the less that discussion is significant, the more we're going to be able to expand our menu and do more things, and they be able to communicate with great fluidity and understand how we go about our business.
Did Pepper show you anything last week that makes you want to include him in that group?
He certainly did. I thought he played with really good energy. He was productive. He made some tackles. He caused and recovered a fumble. But above all of that, I thought his experience showed. Although he was new to us, he was a really good communicator, particularly for a first in-game experience from a defensive unit perspective. And oftentimes, levels of communication, is an indication of understanding. And so the way he communicated, certainly, he displayed a high level of understanding, and that makes us all really comfortable.
Mike, how would you assess how the offense is through 3 weeks now?
I think we're moving good and moving in the right direction. Certainly there are areas of get better in all areas: run game, pass game, protection, divisional labor, personality. But I like the general trajectory of all of those things that I mentioned.
What's keeping the run game from being more consistent?
You know, I think sometimes it's game circumstances. We're not getting off the field a lot or frequently enough on defense. And I think it's altering our time of possession. And oftentimes that dictates how the game is played in some instances. You know, Calvin Austin, for example, I don't know that Calvin's had a punt return. And so that's an indication of the possession component of play and how oftentimes that can affect other phases of the game, not just the unit that might be struggling in a certain area. And certainly we hadn't gotten off on possession downs defensively the way that we liked, and there's a trickle-down effect of that.
You've seen 3 games worth of a sample size for DK and how teams are guarding against him. What ways can you be creative in an attempt to get him the ball like you did in week 1, for instance, when Sauce wasn't on him, to get him in run and catch situations?
I don't have any reservations about our ability to get DK the ball. If people want to allocate schematics of multiple people to him, that's why it's the team game. He's doing a lot of things well, really comfortable with the trajectory of our division of labor in that space. Guys like Calvin Austin are going to have opportunities to make plays, and you've seen that already in a short period of time. And so it's just about the general collective growth and development needs to continue.
After watching the tape, how do you assess Derek Harmon's play?
I thought he did a nice job for a first time out. I certainly think he needs to continue to work and develop from a conditioning perspective, but that was anticipated, and that's why we were so sensitive to a snap count.
Can the same be said when talking about Tim's question about the way that defenses guard Metcalf? Can the same be said for how offenses are attacking your defense by running away from TJ?
No question.
What did Cole Holcomb show you by the way that he was able to battle back from that gruesome injury to become such an impactful contributor for you on Sunday?
You know, you can't say enough about his mental toughs. It has nothing to do with, you know, what he's doing right now from a playing perspective. But there's a loneliness that comes with rehabilitation. And to see his commitment through the process, his unwavering commitment, his display of mental toughs, his general attitude, I think those are the things that are really significant and why we're looking at the contributions that he's able to make now. He's just a really mentally tough guy. He's got an awesome relationship with football. He appreciates what others might view as drudgery. He enjoys, and I think that helps him in a big way.
What does he add in terms of just the run defense when he is out there?
He's a downhill thumper.
Like I know you said you've done these international trips before, a lot of the guys have, some of them haven't. How do you kind of instill in them how to balance a unique experience like this with it still being a business trip? Yeah.
I don't necessarily view it as a balance. This is a business trip.
Mike, what do you point to for the reasons for the improvement in the red zone offense this year?
You know, I think it's year 2 systematically. Obviously, Aaron, being the veteran that he is, and is an asset there. We have some new unique tools, if you will. DK is a matchup issue in one-on-one circumstances. You've already seen evidence of that. John was a guy we like to get the ball to, et cetera. I just think that it's year 2 of the system, and we got some new tools at our disposal that have assets or you know, some experience in some of those spaces.
With Troy Fautano last week, he talked about the run game. He said that a lot of the time it feels like they're one block away from getting runs, you know, to explode a little bit more frequently. Do you see something similar in assessing the run game?
I expressed that last week when I described it as popcorn, a block here, a block there. That is often the case. It's never gross negligence, particularly at this level of play. What we're talking about when we're talking about the difference between success and failure is minutia, minor things, but that's what makes this game so competitive at this level.
Mike, after the game, Aaron Rodgers said he didn't play well. Just how, through these first 3 games, is he what you expected coming into this season?
He certainly has been, and not only in terms of his play, but in terms of his relationship with the game, how he interacts with teammates, how he loves the preparation process. All of those things have been double thumbs up. And so it's reasonable to expect the in-stadium performance to mirror that. And so he may be disappointed with how he played last week, but we got an opportunity this week to do something about it. And just watching him day to day is not a high level of concern in terms of the outcome being what he and we desire.
How much does having him in the huddle help out with the improved red zone deep offense?
As I mentioned, he's a component of it. He's played a lot of football.
Mike, what's the key to try to minimize some of the different looks you're going to get from Flores and avoid confusion from that?
I think a key component of it is staying on schedule. When he gets you behind the sticks, oftentimes he'll play second down like third down, second and long. And so being in second manageable is a major component of that.
You were asked earlier if the secondary issues were perhaps limiting some of the things or making you hold back some of the things that you could do on defense. Are you at all being forced to hold back some things you might be able to do on offense because of some of the pass protection concerns?
No.
Mike, Herbig seems to be more and more impactful as he gets along here in his career. What steps in development have you even seen from last year to this year?
I think he's still writing that, to be quite honest with you. He's only played in 2 games, but certainly he has the potential for splash. That has been a component of his game since day 0. He's good in passing circumstances. He has a feel for the game. He's ball aware. And so I don't believe any of us are surprised by his ability to produce sack fumbles or come up with the football. He's done that since day 0 that he got here.
He's not the biggest guy in the world. I mean, TJ and Alex are both much larger frame guys. What makes him successful?
I think that's probably why we got him in round 4. He doesn't necessarily look like an outside linebacker, but he has an outside linebacker's game and he plays like one. And I think that's why you're able to get people sometimes a little bit later in the draft than maybe their tape would indicate, because they don't fit the quote unquote cookie cutter component of it. We've never had any reservations about his game or what he's capable of. His stature is his stature.
Mike, you mentioned the need to improve in short yardage defense. What can you do?
Quarterback mobility being a component of it, man. Oftentimes you got to be willing to take the guy out of the middle of the field and play 11-on-11 football. We were less willing to do it a week ago. I've been in a lot of stadiums with Josh McDaniels, man. He's willing to play beyond the sticks in short yardage, and so it made it more problematic to minimize the mobility of Drake May without, being willing to do that. But those are the decisions that you make week in and week out, down in and down out, not only based on the talents of the people that you play, but the play callers as well. And certainly we've been in a lot of situations in stadiums against Josh, and so that was a component of the decision making.
Mike, and you used to work with Brian Flores well here, and now he's obviously had success as a coordinator in Minnesota. What about him, just that you've learned, tells you that he could be a head coach again in this league?
I thought he did a successful job of it the first time around, to be quite honest with you. His willingness to learn is a really attractive component of Coach Flores. We had some awesome discussions during our time together. He certainly has opinions, schematic opinions, strategic opinions, personnel opinions, but his openness to differing thoughts or viewpoints, I think, is a weapon for him as a coach. And so I think that's why you see them do a wide variety of things schematically. I think it first starts with an attitude or an openness to new things or to learning and discovery.
You mentioned a lot of Jordan Addison's personal attributes earlier. With him being injected into the lineup, do you see like their passing game concepts changing at all with how they sprinkle him in? Is that?
I hadn't seen a lot of significant differences in their concepts between their first 3 games and what, say, they were maybe doing a year ago. So I don't know that changes, but certainly the Jimmys and Joes component of it is a factor. I imagine that they're going to be glad to have him back.
Mike, what did you see from Aquale, and do you think that he's kind of earning more opportunities on that D-line?
He is, but oftentimes the rep totality has a lot to do with opportunity. We weren't getting off on third down. We ended up playing a lot of snaps, and so you can view it as an uptick in someone's participation. If we're getting off on third down, there might be less snaps, and you might be asking me why we're not playing them. And so, I'd much rather you ask me that. My interest is getting off on possession downs.
But is he someone that is part of that mix that?
Certainly. He's been in uniform every game. Again, oftentimes his level of participation has been dictated at times by the snap totality.
I know this is a business trip for you, obviously, but what are you most looking forward to about this game coming up in Dublin?
Man, I think a lot about the late Ambassador Rooney, man, and how fired up he would be about this trip and how important the development of this trip was for him. And so I've been thinking a lot about it. I'm sure I'll be thinking a lot about it this week, and I certainly will be thinking a lot about him when we're there. Man, you talk about a guy that certainly had a lot of passion for Ireland and obviously the Steelers, and serving as ambassador to Ireland. I'm sure he's going to be smiling down at us this weekend.
Like when you play a defense that is going to throw so many different schematics at you, what's the benefit of having a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who can make changes at the line of scrimmage?
It's an asset to you if you make it one, but I don't want to make too much out of it. They played the Jets last year, man. They got after the Jets pretty good. And I think Aaron had 20 years of experience then. So we got some work ahead of us this week.
Mike, does the organization do anything to educate the younger players about Mr. Rooney? I don't know if it comes up. I mean, obviously, it's been a while since he's passed. Most of those guys that were here
all the time, and it doesn't take a trip like this for those conversations to happen. Those of us that knew him, man, certainly educate the younger player, the new Steeler, not necessarily the young player, but just the new Steeler, about his mode of operation, how he cared about this football team and what he thought this football team meant, not only to the National Football League, but our fans, this community, the responsibility that comes with being a Steeler. The education is continual.
Like, what have been some of the issues on 3rd and 7+? I think Patriots converted 3 of those, and it was an issue too in the first 2 weeks as well.
They had a really good plan. As I mentioned earlier, in a myriad of ways, we're somewhat limited with some of our schematics due to obvious circumstances. I expect us to continually work and get better in some of those spaces.
Anyone else? All right.
Great. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Mike Tomlin with his press conference for the week. We're going to add the Minnesota Vikings. I'm here now with Missy Matthews. And Missy, the first thing is the injuries. There seems to be some potential good news with 2 guys who are big members of their defense possibly being back, although we're going to find out as the week goes on.
Yeah, I think participation will be the guide, as Coach Tomlin likes to say, for Joey Porter Jr. still dealing with that hamstring injury, and Deshaun Elliott with the knee injury. So we'll have to see if one of those guys can get back. But we did see Jabril Peppers, Brandon Echols, a number of guys really step up this past week in New England. Alex Highsmith, though, however, still dealing with that ankle injury, and he's going to be out for this Week 4 game. But the good news is that bye is coming up.
Yeah, good time for the bye, and that may factor into their decision-making with regard to those injured guys. But one guy who came back from injury last week was Derek Harmon, and he played well right off the bat with a sack, and you can tell he was running, showing for a big man he can move when need be.
I think it was very instrumental having him there in the middle of that defensive line. We saw what TJ and Nick Herbig were able to do, having him there as well. And Cam Hayward, what better guy to learn from? And it was funny, one of the first plays, I think the sack that Derek Harmon had, Rob King, as he was calling the game, thought it was Cam at first because they do look that much alike. It's just a little bit difference of the second number, but same build, same play, and what a phenomenal game both of those guys had.
Both these teams coming off performances where the defense made significant plays. You know about the Steelers with 5 takeaways. They forced those situations in critical situations. When you look at the Minnesota Vikings, Isaiah Rodgers had a dream day if you're a defensive player. 2 defensive touchdowns, one a pick 6 of 80-some yards, and the other one a scoop and score. So they're doing, and maybe Brian Flores is using the recipe here to help him there.
Yeah, the takeaway culture. He was here, I think, when they started really passing out the T-shirts, having different levels. You see TJ Watt, all of those guys, Denzel Martin, the outside linebackers coach, wearing them and talking about them. Even when Mike Hilton was here, he was big on it as well. So definitely something to look at. And it's just funny how both games worked out this past week as they get ready to head to Dublin and meet there.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about what happened last week in New England, a big win for the Steelers, and also focus on the Vikings, a team that is also 2-1, and they have a grizzly veteran back there in Carson Wentz. We'll talk about him, what he means to their offense, coming up as we continue right here on KDK Plus and all your Steeler digital platforms.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Could you talk about that last drive and in particular the throw to Calvin?
Yeah, we had to have a drive there, so guys made some plays. Thought an important play was the screen there, Kenny cutting it back inside to give us a third and manageable. And then we actually just talked about that in the huddle before the drive, about just a subtle signal on what I might want if I gave that when Cal was on the other side. So it was nice he was in the same page. I didn't throw the best ball, but Cal's so damn fast. You know, he made a great play.
What was that subtle signal?
Well, it's probably on the TV copy. Everything is these days.
No one else?
Aaron, when you're not taking advantage of opportunities, what's keeping you guys confident or getting you through those chances for that last drive to be ready?
Just our defense, honestly. I mean, there was urgency. I think, you know, it was one of those weird disjointed games. We had 3 possessions in the first half. We had a chance on the third possession to keep it going. Pat and I weren't on the same page on the scramble drill. Then we sat on the bench for what seemed to be 20 or 30 minutes. So we just couldn't get to a rhythm at all. And then we came out second half. I made a terrible throw. Defense just kind of stood on their head all day. But, you know, I thought the first 2 drives were really good rhythm-wise, and we just couldn't find that rhythm in the second half.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh, my TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked up! What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
He certainly did. I thought he played with really good energy. He was productive. He made some tackles. He caused and recovered a fumble. But above all of that, I thought his experience showed. Although he was new to us, he was a really good communicator, particularly for a first in-game experience from a defensive unit perspective.
All right, that is Mike Tomlin talking about Jabril Peppers. Got an opportunity to play week number 2. Last week, missing not so much. He was basically in here midweek. He didn't have a lot of time to acclimate himself to what's going on. But now we saw what he can do. He's a veteran. I often wondered why New England wouldn't want him around, because I still think he has good football in him, and we saw that last week here in Pittsburgh.
And I think he was wondering why New England let him go as well. You could tell just it was a different situation for him in terms of he's played for other teams, but you're cut from this team, and then a few weeks later you're playing against them. And he did get a chance to play a lot, and I think, you know, especially with the fumble recovery, that was huge for him. And as Coach had said there in a little bit earlier when he was talking about him in the press conference, he's a good communicator, and that gave the coaching staff the confidence that they could put him in there and he would be able to hang with the rest of the guys.
Mike Tomlin always talks about turnovers and winning that battle, and right now the Steelers are number 1 in the NFL in terms of saving points after they force a turnover, and also, you know, scoring points when they get some. They've taken advantage of this. I thought this game was number 1. If you're going to look at an example of Mike Tomlin defense, this is it. Now, that's not to say that they have things they can't get better at, because they've given up a lot of yards, and certainly you don't want that. I think TJ Watt spoke to that yesterday. But when you take the ball away, it has to have a deflating feeling for that other team, especially near the goal line as they were twice.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're doing it where this team has chances to score multiple and you take it away just like that, I think it's just a momentum killer for them, but good for the Steelers defense, especially going into halftime, and then being able to hang in there. The time of possession game is something the Steelers have to start winning. These past 3 weeks, they have not possessed the ball more than their opponent, and for this Steelers defense that is already dealing with so many many injuries, they were out on the field for a very long time, and it felt like the offense got going earlier in the game when obviously they put up the 14 points, but it just felt like they could not get it going in the second half. But the defense kept, next man up, making plays and doing exactly what they needed to do. Talked so much about, as they prepped for this game, the fumbles that Ramad Stevenson and even Drake May had prior coming into this game last season. So it was something that they were cognizant of. It's something that I feel like anytime you see those guys make a tackle, you see a punch go in there as well, especially with TJ Watt in them.
Yeah, those guys, Herbig and Watt, are very good at it, and we saw later in the game another one of those.
Yeah.
It turned out to be the turnover that set up the game-winning touchdown in that game. But at the other side of it, too, you don't want to see third down and fourth down conversions, and we've seen a lot of those because they can change the game also. Just as a turnover would be deflating for a team like New England, you have a third and long and the drive continues. That's something that obviously has to change, and they know that, and they have to work at that to get better.
Yeah, and I think that's when you need to give certain guys breaks too, which you don't want in those situations. If TJ gets a break, it's usually on first or second down. They want him in there on third down. But when it is drives, that one drive in the second half was, double-digit minutes. It was just insane how long it kept going. Even Aaron Rodgers said after the game he felt like they were on the bench for 20, 30 minutes, not able to do anything because the defense was still out there trying to stop the Patriots.
And you'd like to reverse that. Make the offense be on the field for those 17-play drives, take 7-8 minutes, and the defense could be well rested for when they get back on the field. Those are always some of the things teams have to work on throughout the course of a long season. But the good news, they won the game. They're 2-1, and they have a chance to get to 3-1 before their bye week, as Minnesota is up next. We'll talk about the Vikings and the problems they pose when we come back. This is the Mike Tomlin Press Conference Show every Tuesday right here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked off. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Last one.
Oh yeah, I mean, we knew those guys were ball search victims all week. They had a lot of fumbles on tape. And anytime you emphasize that throughout the week, it needs to show up in the game, and that's what you saw today.
I guess anytime you have 5 turnovers, it's a pretty good day. At least should be.
I mean, yeah, there's going to be a lot of good film to watch in this. Obviously, we've had some pretty rough performances the first couple of weeks, and today was a much better performance, but there's still a lot of room to grow.
Third and longs. What do you think the issues have been for you guys? It seems like that's the one area that's been a struggle lately.
I think it's just a matter of working together. Rushing coverage has to work together, and we need to get home. And I thought the guys in the back end did a good job of covering to allow us to be able to get to those quarterbacks, especially in some max pro situations, especially at the end there. But we got to do better, of course.
TJ, for you, how good do you feel to get a sack, and not just one sack, but 2?
I'm happy about the win.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it got tipped, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, it got tipped, and shout out to Cam on it.
Did that change the trajectory of it or the speed of the ball or anything? Can you tell?
No, not that I remember. Like I said, it was kind of like a blur. I barely remember what happened. Like I blank out sometimes in the middle of the play, so it'd be like that.
How do you just evaluate this game where you guys forced turnovers but then gave up a fair number of yards?
No, we just go back. The biggest thing is coming out with the win. We come back tomorrow, see what we did wrong. Because obviously, we can win when we really want to. We just gotta, step up, look at what we need to fix, and get it fixed.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
I think a key component of it is staying on schedule. When he gets you behind the sticks, oftentimes he'll play second down like third down, second and long. And so being in second manageable is a major component of that.
All right, Mike Tomlin talking about Minnesota, and Brian Flores, one time here, now he's their defensive coordinator. He's done a very good job with that team. You look at their defense, Missy, you don't see a lot of names that you would recognize, but they get the job done when they have to. And he does a lot of different things pre-snap. But for the Steelers' point of view, it's good to have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's seen just about everything in his 21 years in this league. So that's going to be a matchup to watch.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting game of chess between those two guys. Obviously, we've seen just the few things Aaron has done pre-snap to get guys to jump off sides, having too many men on the field. And as you said, not a lot of huge name, household names. That's more on their offensive side of the ball with their wide receivers and whatnot. But I do think their secondary, in terms of what Brian Flores likes to do with them, is definitely a strong point. Obviously, you saw what they were able to do against the Cincinnati Bengals last week. Of course, no Joe Burrow, going with Jake Browning. So a little bit of a different test in a way, per se, because it wasn't Burrow and company. But as you said, Jamar Chase, during the break, he didn't have very much, and their offense just could not figure out how to go against this defense. And they are physical, and we've seen it even in their playoff game.
Yeah, they are very good at shutting down, bigger name receivers, and Chase was one of them last week. He only had 20 yards, but as you said, Browning's a big difference compared to Burrow. The other thing they did is when they tried to run, Cincinnati had nowhere to go. I think the numbers were 21 carries for 53 yards. That's not going to get it done when your passing game isn't working. So it was all about down and distance, and when they became third and long, those players like Isaiah Rodgers came up with big plays.
Yeah, and I think, for the Steelers, the run game is something that has been inconsistent. You saw it working well in the first half in New England with Jaylen Warren, and then it started to taper off where it felt like they couldn't get anything going. We're actually losing yardage in the second half from their total from the first, but definitely something that they want to be more consistent of. And as Coach said when asked about that as well, it's how the game flow is going. It's the time of possession. And for whatever reason, we just have not seen that complete game from a Steelers offense that I think we've been wanting to see. We've seen it in halves and quarters, and hopefully they can eventually get that together.
Yeah, you got to get the time of possession on your side, especially against the defense like this, because if they have the lead and they're on the field, they get to be, and Flores is not, shy about blitzing. He'll come from all different angles. And in this game last week, there were instances of that, and I think Jake Browning was caught off guard too.
No doubt. I mean, think about some of the times the Steelers have gone against, Jake Browning and what they were able to do. And I do think that played into it with Brian Flores and what he has built in terms of the culture there with that Vikings defense.
Yeah, they certainly do. And as far as their offense is concerned, man, you're talking about a team that can, again, Carson Wentz is not one of these guys who's just your normal routine run-of-the-mill backup. He has had a history on his side. He was an MVP candidate at one point, was terrific in Philadelphia, and the Steelers found out when they played him over there a couple of times. So in a way, it's almost like, okay, would you rather face a rookie like J.J. McCarthy, the Steelers have success against him, versus this guy and the weapons that he has?
Right, and I think Coach Tomlin brought up the perfect example, a little bit of a different situation. Going into this game that Carson Wentz is their starter, but that game early last season in Indianapolis against the Colts, Anthony Richardson isn't able to go, and all of a sudden it's Joe Flacco. Two completely different types of quarterbacks, but that veteran quarterback sometimes, can use their smarts, the things we're talking about with Aaron Rodgers, that make things a little bit more difficult than if you're going against a younger guy.
And they got Christian Darrisaw back. He's one of their better tackles, the first-round pick, and he was out for a long time. I don't know how many weeks dating back to last year. But when you have a team like the Steelers and they want to come with edge pressure, he's the guy, it would be helpful not to have him. But he's back, and he got a little bit of play last week. I would imagine his snap count will go up this week.
Yeah, and I think, for Nick Herbig playing a lot of snaps last week without Alex Highsmith, it's nothing new to him. We've seen what he can do, but him and TJ just worked really, really well together. We even saw DeMarvin Leal, who was called up, get some snaps on the outside as well. They have Jack Sawyer, so hopefully they continue to gel and mesh and can do what they did in New England and carry that over to Dublin.
It's never a bad thing to win the turnover battle. That keeps you in games, and sometimes it leads to victories then, despite the fact you may be outgained in yardage. And that's been the case with the Steelers, so they certainly have to tighten that up. We'll talk more about what the Steelers need to do in this game coming up in Dublin, Ireland, when we return right here on a Tomlin Tuesday, getting set for the Vikings and the Steelers in Ireland. 'Cause in Ireland, 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 'cause in I
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
Cam, you talk about the two takeaways down by the goal line, both of which you had your hand in.
You know, I just think for our group, we talk about we don't care how we get on the field, we don't care the situation. We got to find a way to get off the field. And, you know, we do a good job of studying our opponents, looking for ways to create turnovers. And we preached all week that, you know, we're going to have some opportunities to, you know, punch at that ball. That was very apparent today. And then, you know, in the quick pass, you know, you can't always be a rusher. You got to get your hands up and result in an interception.
Mike said that during the week you talked about Stevenson's his fumble issues last
Mm-hmm.
year, and that was a kind of a point of emphasis.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
100%. We, you know, from Wednesday on, we or probably Tuesday on, we were very steadfast about, you know, creating turnovers. I think Stevenson had 14 going in. May had some. Four also had some. So we were very locked in on that, and it paid dividends then. Yeah, I thought Derek played very well. He's got strong hands. You know, I was worried about his conditioning, but he came to play today. And, you know, I think it really balanced out our group, especially with Lau going down. So to get him back in the flow, and he's just going to keep getting better, you know, I think it creates for something we can build on.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about today.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
It is picked off. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
Man, I think a lot about the late Ambassador Rooney, man, and how fired up he would be about this trip and how important the development of this trip was for him. And so I've been thinking a lot about it. I'm sure I'll be thinking a lot about it this week, and I certainly will be thinking a lot about him when we're there. Man, you talk about a guy that certainly had a lot of passion for Ireland and obviously the Steelers, and you know, serving as ambassador to Ireland. I'm sure he's going to be smiling down at us this weekend.
No doubt on that. Yes, he would be very happy that the Steelers will be the first team to play in a regular season game in Dublin, Ireland. And just because of the heritage and everything involved with the Rooney history there, this is going to be a fun week, Missy. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. I know a lot of former players are going to be there. So this is sort of like a celebration as much as it is. And one of those moments is you really try to enjoy, because it's sort of once in a lifetime experience for a lot of Steeler fans who are going to make their way over.
Absolutely, and it's crazy that the Steelers have not played in an international game since 2013 when they played the Vikings week 4 in London. But my parents are actually over in Dublin already and said they've gone on different, you know, sightseeing tours. 2 hours away from Dublin, they went kind of north, said there are Steelers fans everywhere. It is just like a takeover of the island. And I was reading an article on NFL.com, and one of their guys in charge of ticketing said that this is the first international game where more than 1/3 of the tickets are coming from the United States. Normally it's, you know, the local community and then the UK as well. But I think it's going to be a very, very dominant. We're going to see a lot of terrible tests. Let's just put it that way.
Well, that's always routine, especially now in this. You know, look back. I remember when this first was announced, there were like a rush for tickets, like 600,000 people on digital devices.
In the queue, yeah.
Yeah. So that goes to show you about the popularity. But people in Ireland a lot of them are already Steeler fans. I know people have gone there before to watch games. There are certain pubs that are there. And listen, if you go there, the advice would be you got to get the Guinness tour, right? You got to get the Jameson tour. Have a little fun along.
Is that on your itinerary?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, you have to try these things, right? But what would make it better is if you celebrate after the game with a Guinness and the Steelers get a win. So
yes.
For that to happen, guys have got to step up. We saw Cole Holcomb last week do just that. He came back, and I can't even imagine coming back, and the work that you have to put in to rehab yourself from that injury. I think all the L's were compromised, the M, the A, and C. All of them, right?
Yeah. He's never really said exactly what it was, but to the point where it took him 19 months to get back to playing football, to put in that work is crazy.
Yeah, and he made a fact right off the bat. He forced the first fumble for Ramondre Stevenson, and so he knew going into this one. You remember they signed him to be a 3-down back, and this injury may have changed that for now, but he's working his way back to be that person.
I did like, though, how they were utilizing him in different situations than Peyton Wilson, which we saw the first 2 weeks, and I think it did make a difference. Obviously, you add Derek Harmon into the mix as well in the middle, but Cole was doing such a great job, and I remember the preseason game in Jacksonville where we got a chance to talk to him after he finally played, and just how emotional he was of getting back to what he loves in football, but then to do it in a regular season game and making those splash plays, that's just a whole nother level of what he said is just unbelievable.
Well, he, along with everyone on that Steeler defense, they got their work cut out from this week, because Justin Jefferson's one of the best in the game, and they're bringing back Jordan Addison. Now, it'll be his first game back from a suspension, but they also have T.J. Hawkinson. They have a lot of people who can, when we saw last week, the middle of the field, and, Hunter Henry certainly made them pay at certain times. They got to shut that down more. Hawkinson is maybe a guy who can do that, but at the same time, they like to run the ball, and he's part of their run game.
Well, and we saw them run the ball well, especially with Jordan Mason. And yes, my son who plays fantasy football was mad that he did not play Hunter Henry last week, which I told him you can't do when they're playing the Steelers. But yeah, something that will be a good test for the Steelers defense is Coach talked more about the situational downs, the weighty downs as he calls them, improving in that area. We know they can take the ball away, but you also need to get the ball back quickly, not letting them extend these drives to the offense to try to get them going as well.
Yeah, and they also have Jalen Naylor. There's some depth there in the wide receiving. Kevin O'Connell, he's done a very good job. It doesn't matter, they're working with J.J. McCarthy, but last year we saw the resurrection of Sam Darnold, who's cashed in on a big contract with Seattle. He's one of these quarterback whisperer kind of coaches, right? He develops guys. He knows how to do it.
Absolutely, and I think even Kirk Cousins' time there, we saw on the Netflix series Quarterback, just what he is able to do with the offense and with a quarterback and having that trust with them. And I did kind of want to see J.J. McCarthy, not only because it would probably be better for the Steelers to see a younger guy, but also just to see the development and what he has been able to do with him.
Yeah, out with injury, so we won't see him, but it's Carson Wentz who'll be their quarterback against Aaron Rodgers. Two veterans are going at it, both grizzled, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. We'll talk about that game more as we continue here on a Tomlin Tuesday. We're live on the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the South Side. Back in a flash.
Our fans are here. Give them something to cheer about to them.
The crowd at Acrisure is so loud.
There's nothing like game day in Pittsburgh.
Oh my, TJ!
This defense is swarming.
And it's picked up. What a catch! Wow! Guess who? Touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers!
We'll see you at Acrisure Stadium. Here we go.
On the winning touchdown, was it intended to go for you from the go?
No, it was a full, a full play call. 8 gave me, a little signal that we were on the same page and converted.
Coming after the same page, how good did that feel after you guys have had some misconnections in the last few weeks?
I think it was just, with this game and stuff, you're gonna have, some ups and downs and stuff, but I think it's the biggest thing was just, this week, we continued to be ourselves, continue to communicate, and then there was no panic at all from the last game, and so, you get in moments like this, and it's just about you just go back to your training and just got to go back to fundamentals, because that's all that was, just basic fundamentals right there.
He probably came running after you, Kevin. Did you see Aaron Rodgers? He came running after you after you scored. Did it surprise you at all? Did you expect that?
Oh, yeah. I think after the first one I scored versus the Jets, he was one of the first people over there. So, that's the thing with this. Like stuff happens, but like we see each other every day, so it's like it's not like you know what I'm saying. It's on to the next. So I wasn't surprised at all.
After the struggles there for a couple quarters, were you guys able to feed off the defense and the 5 turnovers, especially that last one, which led to your touchdown?
Yeah, most definitely. The defense, obviously, came up extremely big, and each of those moments where they were getting those turnovers, obviously you want to convert on all of them because we wouldn't be in this type of game. But sometimes there's games like this, and as Coach T says, like it doesn't. Sometimes you may not win pretty, you know what I'm saying? But it's just about at the end of the day, executing at the end.
Get all your Steelers gear direct from the team. Shop the Steelers Pro Shop in-store or online for all things black and gold. You can get jerseys, hats, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can't find anywhere else. And of course, get the ultimate Steelers game day accessory, the Terrible Towel. Steelers Nation shops here. Get your gear in-store or online at shop.steelers.com.
You can characterize Alex Highsmith is out this week with his ankle. Deshaun Elliott and Joey Porter certainly have a chance. I just saw Deshaun working out just a few minutes ago. We'll work those guys this week and let the amount of their participation and the quality of their participation be our guide in terms of their participation in game.
All right, so no Alex Highsmith. Hopefully at least one guy in the secondary is able to make it back. In terms of the Vikings, their left guard, Donovan Jackson, had wrist surgery. He's out for the next 2 games, so the Steelers won't see him in Dublin. And Ryan Kelly, their center, could be back from concussion protocol.
Donovan Jackson's a rookie, and he's played well for them, so he's going to be gone there. And that's where Cam Hayward likes to line up, so that could be, who knows?
A good thing.
Yeah, a good thing for Cam Hayward. He's playing very well here. The last couple of games made significant plays. So that's going to wrap it up for us. Look forward to it. Should be a fun trip.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Pack your bags, Pomp.
We'll be talking to you next week when we come back here from that game, and hopefully it's a Steelers win in Dublin to get to 3-1. And then there's a bye week, which could impact some of these guys who are coming back from injury. But that's going to do it for Missy Matthews and our talented staff here with the Pittsburgh Steelers and KDK Plus. I'm Bob Pompiani. Have a good week. We'll see you in Dublin.